live now. I'll go back to YouTube. And I'll go out of YouTube. And I would like to say good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is July 16th, and we'd like to begin our meeting with a salute to the flag, which we're going to stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so our first order of business is to approve 2 sets of minutes from May 21st and June 18th. Can I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve minutes from May 21st and June 18th.
June 18th, thank you. Is there a second? Second, thank you, Councilman. All in favor of approving the minutes? Say aye. All right, any opposed? No. Motion carries. We will have those minutes all approved. Now, what we'd like to do is, before we begin our regular reporting, we wanted to, we have a special guest tonight on our meeting, and I hope she, where is she? She gets back on. I can't see her. Wait a minute. There they are. Kim Skorlik and Brian Skorlik. Hello there. Thank you for joining us. We have something special that the town board and our Parks and Recreation Department would like to say to you, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Welsh.
Okay, this is a resolution commending resident Kim Skorlik. Whereas it has come to the attention of the town board of the town of Unionville that the Brian Skorlik family, led by Kim Skorlik, creators of the Egg Hunts for All event at Timor Park, was a finalist in the Dutchess Tourism Incorporated Accessibility Hospitality Award of Distinction, a distinct honor that was shared with just 2 other finalists from the entire county of Dutchess. And whereas the town is only as great as those residents who give or demonstrate exceptional service to their community, whether through initiation of or participation in voluntary programs, exemplary personal achievement, or endeavors in their professional or personal lives, or a lifetime of positive actions and good citizenship. And whereas it is the feeling of this board that when a resident demonstrates extraordinary dedication to their own values and that of our community, and those values and principles are brought to their attention, the same should be memorialized for the purpose of honoring that resident and emulation by others. And whereas actions demonstrating devotion to one's community are indispensable towards creating a happy town with proud members, and yet so often goes unnoticed and unrecognized. And whereas Kim Skorlik has a personal history of devotion to others as a wife, mother, school teacher, co-founder of Tabby's Vision Foundation, and creator of the adaptive egg hunts at Timor Park, enabling children with sensory, vision, and wheelchair accessibility issues to participate in hunting Easter eggs similar to that of the town's traditional egg hunt, all of which demonstrate Kim Skorlik's exemplary personal achievements. Now, therefore, be resolved that the town board of the town of Unionville recognizes and commends Kim Skorlik as an outstanding citizen for her achievements and leadership skills, one who is worthy of the esteem of the community and the town of Unionville. A framed copy of this resolution is presented to Kim Skorlik on behalf of the town board.
Thank you for that introduction.
You're welcome.
That resolution, I'm going to second that introduction, and I'm going to call for a roll call vote.
Councilman Frazier?
Aye.
Councilman Whitney?
Aye.
Councilman Derlin?
Aye.
Councilman Welsh?
Aye.
Supervisor Mott?
Aye, it's unanimous. You are our special resident and citizen, and we appreciate your efforts. So thank you very much. We've got, oh, actually, I'm supposed to do this on cue. We do have this to present to you tomorrow if you come by Town Hall, and it's been signed by all the town board members who were thrilled to sign it. And if you come by, we'd like to take a picture of you, if you don't mind, to put in a special place on the website and other places. Okay.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate the town supporting this egg hunt. It's very challenging for families who have kids with special needs, and we just really appreciate the town continuing to support the effort.
Kim Skorlik as an outstanding citizen for her achievements and leadership.
Hold on. Yeah, the volume on. There we go. You're back. We
No,
hope-
I just want to thank you so much. I mean, this board isn't about us. It's about like thanking the, just thank you so much for supporting families who have kids with special needs. It's just, it's very challenging. So we just appreciate that the town continues to support families and give kids the opportunities that they deserve. So thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Kim.
for all your leadership in this endeavor.
Absolutely. We really appreciate it. We're very proud and thank you. And we'll see you tomorrow. And if you want to stay, you're more than welcome. And if you don't, we get it.
Thank
All
you.
right. You take care. Good night, Brian.
Right.
Okay, so that was our favorite part of the agenda tonight, frankly. At this point, I'm going to give the supervisor's report. And I'll talk because we've got a full agenda. I'll try to go quickly. From a cash flow perspective, unlike last month, we did not have a negative cash flow in the month of June, but we did, as expected, only bring in 33% of what was budgeted. Year to date, we show our income down by $319,472, or at 91% of our budgeted goal. We are projecting to be down in revenue by approximately $493,000 at year end, with a potential loss of $262,000. But we have September through December, and I say September because they want it to be quiet, through August. We do have some things on deck and things that we can have for September, December, and we're very hopeful that we might be able to make some of that revenue back. Total cash balances at the end of June were $3,089,125 in the general fund and $577,574 in the highway fund. The good news, some good news, we made the last scheduled payment on the Ford 350 on July 1st. So that means we have nothing else on our debt list except for that serial bond, which is at this point, it's at the $615,000. It was, $900 shortly a couple of years ago. We cannot refinance it. I've tried, I've called them. It's just the deal that was struck at the time. Yeah, so I guess it was considered a good deal at the time and it was non-refundable. So can't refinance that.
Can we prepay it, borrow elsewhere?
Well, we can't prepay it either.
Oh, okay.
They've got the doors all locked
All
and he was very adamant about not trying to
Okay.
work with us. So anyway, it was the closing of the landfill and it was that $193,000 truck that was paid for with it. And
Yeah, the highway department.
yep. So we're chipping away at it, but to have only one bond and that's our total
Mhm.
long-term debt.
Right.
I feel good about that. And I think we all do, given that we paid everything else off. Consistent with our practice, the councilmen have received the list of warrants, including the warrant for all the refunds given out last month for summer camp, which was quite extensive. They've gotten a list of the cash receipts, escrow reports, the building department report mandated by law to submit that monthly, and lists of all the deposits made in both the general fund and the highway fund. They have also received the performance versus budget for the month of June and year to date.
Try to clear up this band, okay? These are my babies.
I don't know what that is, but we'll just mute everybody. From a town perspective, I wanted to mention the Iron Furnace Pay It Forward program. They've stopped it for now, but they raised $4,000 from adding $1 to a margarita to the GoFundMe page. And they raised $4,000 and they spent all of that money making meals and delivering them to Unionville residents who were ill or homebound or alone and couldn't get out and, to go pick up or whatever. And they, it stopped for now. They may start it up again and they may have identified a terrific service that the town could use for some of our senior citizens or people that are ill. Anyway, it was very well received by the residents. On Monday, this is also, I think, we'll put this in the category. This would be interesting to hear people's comments. Monday, Jake Gosnell, our park manager, and I had a meeting with Frank Costella, and he is the president, CEO of the Dutchess County Chamber of Commerce. And he is a new, less than a year, about a year, Unionville resident, which is very exciting because he grew up in Pleasant Valley and spent his whole life in LaGrange, but now he's in Unionville and he seems to absolutely love it.
You've seen the light.
Yeah, he's seen the exactly. Anyway, he came over to talk to us about doing a balloon lift here at the end of September, early October. It's a tradition that they've always done. It is not the year to do a balloon festival at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds. It wouldn't be appropriate because it's too many people. But there are lots of sponsors that like sponsoring something like this. It brings people out in a way that could be, is very low key. There's no food, there's nothing like that. There's not even restrooms. But his typical liftoffs are at 6 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, and 6 p.m. at night on the weekend, whichever weekend that he's able to do it. It would only be 8 to 12 at the maximum number of balloons. He was so, it was interesting for Jake and I, because when he came over, he had been over at the airport at Sky Acres. And Steven Stiles said, you know, you need to go over and look at the town too. I mean, he goes, doesn't matter to me if you do it here or not, but you should go look at Timor. And so he called and we made an appointment. He came over and he couldn't believe, he said he'd walked through here once with his wife, but he said, I absolutely love it. There's a balloon meister, and he had to check with the balloon meister. And the balloon meister apparently was here yesterday, walking all around, taking dozens of pictures. And they think they could do it in a very safe way, but in a way that would be fun for people after a pretty dogged, 6 months. And he thinks all of his sponsors are on board and are interested in doing it, which would mean that their signs would be up. People could come at 6:30 in the morning. It's an hour. I think it's an hour and a half at the most. And then at 6 in the evening, it's an hour and a half. And it's just the balloon liftoff. It's not, no party, no nothing. So because of the number of people that are coming, we will get that application in front of the town board and we can discuss it. But I'm wondering, do you guys have any preliminary feelings about it? It'll be after Oktoberfest, our stated date for Oktoberfest, last week of September, or perhaps the first weekend in October. 8 to 12 balloons. Apparently the balloon meister loved the location as well. So what do you
Sounds
think?
interesting.
Yeah, sounds positive, right?
Yeah.
That's what I think our thought was. Kevin, what do you think? You like it? We'll get more details from him. Actually, he said he's more than happy to come to the August town board meeting and discuss it, present the plan in public. Now, typically what they do is they launch in different locations around the county. If they're going to do a small town event, and he remembers, and we have a picture, he remembers being here many years ago. They've done them here before. And then they got big and, over the years. But he said if they do 8 to 12 here, or maybe they end up with just doing 8, kind of they call it, then he said they might be at another town doing 4, that kind of thing. But it's supposed to be a small town, smaller event, just to bring people some joy because of, they can't party as much. And he's hopeful that we'll like the idea, and he thinks the people will. So more details to come. I'll keep everybody posted. Okay. Oh, for my last town report, I wanted to say that the recycling center is getting a lot of business. And they did 107% of their budgeted goal in June, which has never happened before.
Revenue?
Of revenue.
Good.
And they're at 105% of the annual budget goal for revenue. They're underspending, so they're ahead of the game in a very nice way. And I would just like to say, I'd like to give a shout out to Mike Novak and Pete Poltrak for suffering through all the heat and the waves of people coming in who have been spending all these months cleaning out their attics.
And the nice odor they have to deal with.
Which is benefiting our recycling center, which is great. It's not a profit center. We just don't want to lose money, and it's a nice service for people.
The residents do appreciate it.
And the residents appreciate it. And these guys have been holding up, doing really well. And I also wanted to say today is Peter Poltrak's birthday. So at 105% of goal, we should say thank you, Peter, and thank you and happy birthday. So that goes out to Peter. Yeah. From a county perspective, I got something today. Where did I put it? I want to make sure that everybody was aware of this, because the state likes to jolt us every now and then. This was new. I hadn't heard this. It wasn't on the conference call, but the New York Department of Health released a new rule regarding face covering. And it reads in part, business operators and building owners and those authorized on their behalf shall deny admittance to any person who fails to comply with this section requiring face coverings, and shall require or compel such persons removal if they walk in without a mask on. Individuals found violating this rule are subject to a $1,000 civil penalty per violation, and businesses are subject to a $2,000 civil penalty violation. The full rule is on the website. I hadn't heard that this week. That is not great for sometimes people that refuse. Then you have to ask customers to leave, and it puts owners in an awkward position, but they're adamant about it. And now they've got, and they still have, the snitching site, so people
Yeah.
can get reported on,
it's
and then
tough.
they can get slapped with a $2,000 civil penalty.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure everybody knows about that. And then the last thing was, this is new, the travel advisory update. You know that they keep adding states to that.
Yes.
Well, you heard earlier this week that there was a health form that if somebody gets off an airplane in New York, then they're going to be required to fill out the health form, including New York State residents, everybody. So travelers who leave the airport without completing the form will be subject to a $2,000 fine, and they may be brought back for a hearing, and they may be ordered to complete mandatory quarantine. I think we heard about that earlier this week.
Yes.
Now they are saying travelers coming to New York from designated states through other means of transport, including trains or cars, must fill out an online form and submit it, telling them who you're with and where are you
going?
and they have that form online. So it's a strange new world out there, but people need to know about this stuff so that they don't, certainly don't talk about what you're doing when you're doing something. And if you do, maybe you should wear a mask. Okay, that's the end of my report. At this point, I would like to turn it over to Councilman Derland. I'll start alphabetically.
Sure. So I've been, I'll say, Pat was left, but we've been working on trying to sort out that policy for the planning board, and I guess the zoning board, in terms of how to compel applicants to complete their process in a timely manner. So I think we have a decent idea of what is possible, but we're going to run by council. Get that sorted out.
Great. This is now explain a little bit for people that didn't hear it before.
So if you are not aware of what we're trying to work on,
Great.
All right. So if you are not aware of what we're working on, over the past few years, when I was on the planning board, and now with Pat as the chair of the planning board, we've had some issues with applicants that come before us and then sort of disappear for an extended period of time, and then come back, say, 6 months later or even a year later, looking to restart their application. And that poses a little bit of a problem for the boards in terms of just trying to stay on top of what happened at previous meetings, being that they were maybe 6 months or a year ago. And it just kind of minors the planning board process, gets us all kind of hung up. So I think what we thought is that we should try to develop a policy to compel the applicants to try to get through the process a little bit faster. And so I think that we kind of came up with a bit of a plan. I don't, it's nothing crazy, but we need to get these applicants on board with going through the process in a timely manner instead of disappearing for 6 months. And some of that involves, George's office too, where he's kind of caught in the middle where he should be issuing a ticket, but he doesn't issue a ticket because the way, just the way that the whole situation is laid out. So I think if we can develop this policy and enact this policy, that, we can
Be good. And we're going to talk
move things forward.
Yeah, tonight we're going to talk about the building permit side of that as well, which
Yeah.
has been a challenge with delays. So
Yeah.
that's great. Thank you. Councilman Frazier.
I'm having some difficulty here.
Yeah, it says you're like joining, but that says that for like 10 minutes.
Wait a minute. Here, I think, well, I'm on my phone here too, I believe.
Oh, okay.
But it's not really responding. Why don't you come back to me until.
Okay.
You want to sit over here, Steve? Move out of the way.
Councilman McGivney, do you want to unmute yourself and give us a report or just?
I don't really got nothing this month.
Okay. All right, wait a minute. You got to unmute yourself to say that. I'm teasing you. No. Thank you. Councilman Welsh. Did you unmute? Wait a minute. Are you unmuted? Got it. You are.
I've been following closely all the ever-changing rules from the state and county, as you just noted, about the health department's latest. I had heard about that and travelers and everything else. There's so many changes and additional requirements that I'm trying to keep up with it. People coming in even to visit for the summer now have to either be quarantined or, like you said, register on the website. So things are getting very complicated. Life is not simple anymore. And thanks for making sure the town has complied with all the regulations.
Yeah, we have.
And
Thank you.
It's pretty nice to know everything here is 100%.
We're in good shape.
Yeah.
But I will say, they are trying desperately hard to get those schools opened and,
I know.
you know, and
That's a big
and
challenge.
this kind of plays into it and they're,
Yeah,
so,
there's still a lot of uncertainty.
yeah. Well, thank you very much. All right, Councilman Frazier, would you like to go now?
Sure. Saturday, July 18th, there is a support the local police rally out in Pleasant Valley at 2 West Road. The environment for police has been less than good around here lately, or not so much around here, but nationwide. And this is a gathering of people who just want to show their support for our local police and what they do every day for us. Starts at 1 o'clock and runs till 4. Just a peaceful gathering of people that want to show support for the police. 2 West Road is that small plaza right on the corner of West Road and Main Street.
Oh, yeah. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have our highway super, Mr. Ed Kading. If I can get you to unmute, can you unmute yourself?
What?
Unmute.
I think you
My
have to
phone's
tap.
dead.
Dead.
Yeah, come on over, buddy. All right.
Will you turn your,
Kevin to the-
Kevin, turn your video on, would you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know how that sends off.
You can unmute yourself.
All right, here you go.
Very good.
Okay, Superintendent Kading.
Good evening. So we've been pretty busy at the highway department here of late. We've changed our pipes. I hope people on the southwest side of town have noticed the crew has been out in the subdivision, Cunningham and Rose Court, fixing catch basins that have settled. The crew is also, now we're in our 3rd round of mowing all the town roads. We finished, as most of you already know, we finished all of our major projects. The next large project that we want to get into, and we need some, I guess we need board approval for this, is most of you on the board know we have a large pile of, it's like just fill, and we'd like to process that through a process called screening, where we size the material, and we're gonna make a product. Actually, we're gonna line up with 4 different products. There's enough material there we're projecting for the town's use for approximately 4 to 5 years. Not all for road base and that type of thing. It's not blacktop. It's basically for shoulder material. Also, there'll be some stone for ditching and things like this. Some larger stone that we'll use for riprap at the end of large pipes and stream crossings, that kind of thing. So it's going to be a useful product. Broke it down. We have to rent the equipment to do the process, do the project. The rental of the 2 pieces of equipment that we do need to rent for a month's rent, and that's projected on a conservative side of how long the process is going to take. Hopefully we can get it done quicker than that. If we do, it'll be less money. So the rental of the 2 pieces of equipment together is $17,710. I calculate 2 men for 160 hours. That cost is going to be somewhere around $16,000. I added in another $5,000 for fuel and miscellaneous. So the entire project should come in at, I don't know why you don't have this tallied up for me, dear.
42,000.
Well, there's,
45,500.
There's- yeah, look at the yellow. There's the scenario A and B, remember the
Yeah,
in and out, in-house and outside?
yeah, well, you do these spreadsheets, I'm not a person. Anyway, so the value of the material we're going to make is somewhere around $72,000 if we were to have to go out and purchase this material that is basically sitting on the ground. So the other side of it is, because we didn't use all of our paving budget, we don't have to come to the board for more money. All we have to do is move some of the paving money into this project. The other side of this is the material we are going to create with this, we're going to use to shoulder Quinlan Road,
Still Manila.
Still in Manila.
Yeah, that's what you put on here.
Those roads were just recently chip sealed, and so we'd like to make them 100% complete. So if I can get the board's approval for financing this little project,
So just to be clear, so
please do.
because you gave me a fabulous explanation, we had more time and I know you feel rushed right now, but
Right.
so if you use your crew, the total labor cost would be $18,000
Right.
and that would end up costing $56,710. If you go to outside labor, which they'll give the
That
company,
is just for the shouldering project.
right, but that's the 6,800.
Right,
So that would be 45,510. That's the number we should be focusing on.
right.
Okay.
So
So the outside makes more sense.
by hiring an outside company to put the shoulder material down, we're saving about,
Yeah, almost.
about 12,000.
Almost, yeah.
Sorry about using a shoulder backer machine as opposed to
Yeah.
like a back of it.
Yeah, well, the way that the town crew has been doing it is they load the material that we purchase onto one of their trucks. Then they take it to the site, then they scoop one scoop out at a time with the backhoe and they lay it on the side of the road. And then two other guys are raking it and rolling it in. It's very time consuming, it's very labor intensive,
Wow.
and it's very inefficient.
Yeah, shoulder backer machine.
Yeah, you back up to the machine that we're going to hire in as a subcontractor to the town.
Yeah.
Back the truck in, we're actually gonna be working with a couple of other towns using their trucks in conjunction with ours
Mhm.
to speed the process
Yeah,
along.
good idea.
So.
That's
and
great.
We've been co-mingling with other towns. We helped Dover out last week. Town of Clinton 2 weeks ago with our trucks. We got to go back to town of Clinton next week and one day the following week. So the interaction between towns, it saves everybody a lot of money.
That's great.
You know, it just works.
That's great.
So,
So from a financial standpoint, there is money left over.
mhm.
And we had gone through all the numbers, and remember, just to remind, and for those people that are listening, there was a fund balance of 400,000, and then we took 50 away to put in our capital reserve fund. So there was a 350,000 in the fund balance that is going to be spent for highway, because you don't really need a fund balance in highway. So that rolled over, and so you've got that money in, not only, that's how the permanent expenditures got to go higher, but for
Right.
these projects, so we do have the money for this.
So,
Well, plus what I like is clean all that stuff, those piles of stuff you want to get rid of. If it's
exactly.
unuseful, it's gonna look a lot better up at the highway garage. Be more-
Absolutely. Yep.
More efficient.
And you'll use that material, value of the material for future projects is 72,000. So that will be used for what?
Well, as we resurface roads, we're always having to shoulder them, because
Yeah.
when we resurface, we bring the road edge up higher. So we have to fill that edge in with something, and if we don't, as some of you may have noticed, the roads that were never shouldered in the past,
Yeah,
the shoulders are snapping off. You
yeah.
gotta have that
And
side
it's not
support.
safe for motors.
It's not safe for motorists, and it's bad for the road.
Yeah.
That sounds great. That's a win-win.
And there
That's what we
was-
call a win.
Yeah, it allows water and ice to collect on the
Right.
shoulders in the winter.
Right, and you don't get the erosion
Mhm.
going underneath the asphalt.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a
How many
good.
yards of material you figured you got?
We're calculating around 5,000 yards.
That's a big mountain over there.
Yeah.
A lot of green growth on it now.
You probably can get that done. in less than
That's my
20
hope.
days, Yeah.
But
Let's see.
what the other side of it is, the crew are not experienced with running that equipment. So until they get really experienced at it, it'll take a little more time.
Yeah, those learning curve.
Exactly.
What do you get? That's fiber.
We're getting a, similar to
Like a
S5.
triple
It's a Fentrek.
Yeah.
You get Fentrek,
Fintech,
Fintech,
yeah, which is,
makes 4 products.
Yeah.
And then a PC 200 or 210.
Yeah.
With a thumb to feed it.
Yeah.
And then our loader to stockpile.
nice.
And our stockpiles are gonna be behind the back garage, separate piles.
Yeah.
So by-
Because then you get rid of that pile.
Yeah, we get rid of the pile that's so
That's-
unsightly.
It is very
There's
unsightly.
no downside to doing this.
So in,
And there's, there's funds left over, I guess, from the paving project.
well, yeah, I was just, thank you, Councilman. The 284 agreement that gets signed, that we had signed earlier in the year authorizing those funds, still has enough money in it because of the savings. Bloomer wasn't as long as you expected, or you were told by that
Right.
spreadsheet. And so Bloomer was shorter. We saved a lot of money there. So what the superintendent would like to do is reallocate it. So what we're really doing tonight, the action we'd like to take is to amend the 284. We put this general repair of this 45,510, which is what Superintendent Kading is recommending. We put that under general repairs and then rewrote the 284 to explain, this is a good 284 because we actually have real numbers in here now. These are completed jobs, so we know exactly what they all cost. So this is actually a good piece of paper. So I think this is what we're voting on, is an amended 284, which we will keep on record. So may I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we, make budget transfer from the paving budget to this project, and thank them for figuring out a way to long-term benefit, save money, and utilize all the resources up at the highway department.
That's great. I'll second that one. That's a very nice motion. All in favor of this amended 284?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, unanimously it carries. Thank you, sir. Now, did you want to talk about? I don't want to stop you, but
Still getting bids for the roof and renovation of the salt shed at the highway garage. We do have a pretty big gaping hole in the roof. The town building inspector is writing a report up for you folks to review. We've only gotten one guy to quote it so far, and he's at 24,000. For a roof, what we're looking to do is repair the roof. I don't know how many of you have been down and looked at the building recently. The roof is bad shape. The trim on the building is also pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
The soffits on the roof are under the roof are in rough shape. But the actual bones of the building are good. Some of the siding is rough, but it's just one of the plywood easily repaired. The crew, our crew can replace that without too much of a problem. It's the roof and then the trim on the building is just, we need to either take care of it or we let it fall down. One of the two.
Yeah. Well, we tried, maybe to get grant money, which we're not successful.
Right.
So I guess now we gotta pay for, and get at least a
Right.
decent.
I am aware
But
that
this-
we're trying to do that.
yeah, but you know, it's interesting. So that grant, we asked for 350,000. It would have been a 50-50 split.
Yes.
So that's a lot of money. We would have been paying 175. And now if we fix the roof, once I know you're getting the multiple quotes,
Right.
if you're fixing the roof, and you fix the poles or whatever it is, you know, the sides that you were talking about, how long, what's the life expectancy on that building after that?
According to what George Cole's telling me, if we go with an asphalt shingle roof and others that have done this, I'm not familiar with carpentry too much. I've cut the same board twice and it's too short. But anyway, 30-year roof is
Yeah.
pretty typical. So I think that's probably what we'd be looking at. if We went with asphalt shingles.
And that 22 or 24,000 was a full replacement?
That's peel all the shingles off. That was actually for a steel roof. And then again, I was talking with George because he's helping me out with this. And he advised to go with the asphalt shingles. that he knows that they're less expensive. I wasn't aware of that, because again, I'm not a carpenter. So, I'm taking advice from George. And again, and if you folks know of a roofer that you want to send down and give us the price, I'm open to it.
You've got two, well, you got one on deck.
One.
I got
One completed,
one completed,
one on deck,
one on deck,
and you need another.
and I need another.
And it'll be less than 22,000. I think you told me the first guy was 22, but maybe.
Yeah.
We shouldn't talk in public
How's
Oh.
with the numbers.
how's it-
We're still bidding.
How's the foundation on that building?
It's a pole barn.
Oh, okay,
Poles.
Yeah.
It's not too-
But they're laminated poles, which is the premium, type of pole building now. So,
But the big problem is, it's not big enough to bring this equipment in and load and unload the trucks. Right?
well, the loads we were getting this winter, unless the trucks came like a fleet at one time,
Yeah.
they could back a truck in and dump in the building.
Oh, Richie had said he couldn't get the trucks in there to unload them.
Well,
They had to unload it.
my experience this winter
Yeah.
was, they could back in,
Really?
dump the load, and our guys could push it.
Okay, great.
So
So this is a nice fix for us.
Richie may have had 4 or 5 trucks coming at one time.
I don't know.
And then
Yeah,
drivers
drivers
don't want to wait.
All right, that sounds really good.
So if we can stagger the loads, which,
Yeah.
I don't know why we couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if 2 or 3 trucks show up at a time, we have to wait a little bit to come off.
Yeah.
So we really don't have to vote on that roof right now,
I
Superintendent.
gotta get final numbers.
We get file numbers, bring them back, and then you and I have discussed how we're gonna pay for it, so it'll.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna come back in August on that one. Is that all right? All right.
I want the roof before January.
Okay. All right, that's great. Good news.
That's all we got.
Terrific. All right, well, thank you for that report. All right, you have a good evening. Next up is our town clerk. Any town clerk report? We'd love to hear it.
So I actually have a thank you as well. Burbank resident Alicia Barton Dillinger noticed the flag in Burbank, as I mentioned in the last report, was in disrepair. So she took it upon herself after noticing it. She sent us a message which I did not see at first on Facebook. And when I also looked at it, she had said that she replaced the flag. She went out on her own and got a new one. So I wanted to thank her for being so thoughtful and generous. Yes, absolutely. For noticing, and she promised in the future she'd keep an eye for us and make sure that we are timely with replacing them. So I appreciate that.
Great. Thank you. Thank her. That's terrific.
Speaking of flags, can we put this one at full blast? I mean, every other flag is full.
Oh, did they call it back?
Yeah, park.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. You want to handle that on the way out the door?
Yeah.
No, we only lowered it because the state had asked us
I
to.
know, you said that.
Oh, I didn't, it never came, if it doesn't come up on our conference call, I may not know. So thank you. No, feel free to take care of that. All right, next up would be our public comments on agenda items. Anybody on here, you know how to wave your hand on,
Yeah, the two people that I mentioned that is
Uh-huh.
my and but I don't know which section.
Mrs. Tillman, can you hear me? Can you unmute your phone? Did you want to talk about agenda items or did you want to speak about town issues? You're unmuted now. Go ahead. Hello? Hello? Elfrida, can you hear us? She's unmuted. Okay, we'll come back to her. Maybe she'll call you on the phone. Call the town clerk on the phone and let her know which section you'd like to speak about, and then we'll come back to you. Okay? And that is all we have listed for that, correct? He's not on here.
He's
Yeah, I'm here. My comments are probably more appropriate at
Did
the
you,
end.
Mr. Morrison, are you on?
Yes, yes, I am.
Pardon?
Yes, yes, I'm here. I think I'm unmuted. My comments are more meant toward the end.
Okay, we'll come back to you then. Okay.
Just turn your speaker down now. Yeah, we're on that.
Okay, all right, and then maybe Alfreda will be ready to go then. Okay, so we will come back to that. At this point, we're going to turn to our chair of the CAC. Aki Bush is with us, and Aki, if you can unmute yourself, we'd love to hear your report for the CAC.
Thank you. I think I'm unmuted. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, so the CAC is pleased to tell the town board that we are well along the way in developing Unionvale's Natural Resources Inventory, or its NRI. Sean Carroll, the GIS Environmental Resource Educator at the Cornell Cooperative Extension, has been constructing a series of maps for us. And as you'll remember, the mapping is being done with funding allocated by the Hudson River Estuary Program at no cost to the town. So the maps include an aerial and base maps, maps of agricultural districts, farmland soils, flood areas, steep slopes, topography and elevation, wetlands, stream habitats, large forests, land cover, and a number of other ones. And we have also created a Google Drive so that these maps are available for everyone to take a look at by CAC members or anyone else who's interested. The CAC is currently reviewing the maps for accuracy, for clarity, for comprehensiveness. Questions come up. The land cover map, for example, needs a legend. Do we need to add more road names, more stream names? Does the floodplain map include riparian buffer zones? These are the kinds of questions that we're kind of looking at now. The maps should be complete, we're hoping, by the end of the summer, and we're anxious then to show this work to the town board. And the CAC is hoping we would really like to present them in person to the town board, but I don't know if we can do that. And we also want to present them to the planning board. Nate Nardi Cyrus, our consultant on the project from the DEC, will be present to kind of, show the maps with the DEC perspective, and there'll also be a member of the CAC there presenting as well. So we're really looking forward to showing these to you. Looking at these maps really kind of gives you new information about the town. It really kind of, if you look at the maps, you'll find yourself looking at this town you know so well, really through new eyes. So I hope you find these maps as kind of interesting and even as revelatory as we do. And also we're looking forward to getting your questions and feedback. Once the maps are complete and we have feedback from people, the CAC will then be working on the written narratives to accompany the visual material. And the deadline for the completed maps, we hope, will be in the early spring 2021. So thank you.
That's great. And we'll tell them also, there's a big narrative that has to be written.
Well, that's what I was saying. Once
yeah.
Once the visual material is done, then we get templates to write the copy, and that'll happen.
It takes a while
in the fall.
But you're doing a wonderful job. I mean, and I think everybody's going to really get a lot out of those. They're going to be very proud of their town. I think it looks beautiful. So
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you
so much, Aki. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
Aki, feel free. You're going to be muted, but feel free to stick around or whatever makes you comfortable.
I'll mute myself. Thanks, Betsy.
See you. All right, next up, we will have our departmental reports. Councilman Frazier, can you give us the Parks report?
Yes.
Can you be heard? Yep. It's good.
Yeah.
It's off. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Just report on their activity for the month. Chain link fence around small baseball field has been removed. It looks great. The holes from the post have been filled. Once it rains a few times and fill is settled, they'll top them off with topsoil and seed them. I know there's been some questions from some residents about fees and the sand at Godfrey Park and at Time. We're aware that they are there. And while they look intimidating, they're not aggressive at all, and they are sand dunes. We've tried many things throughout the years to try and prevent them, but nothing has had any effect. We even have had professional exterminators come in and try to deal with them, but nothing works. They only inhabit the sand for a short period of time, and they will move on. I have the same issue where I work. And they are very friendly, well, home friendly bees. They don't sting. They're not aggressive whatsoever, and they nest and they move on.
Good.
Our washing of the buildings has commenced. The town hall has been done and will be done again later in the season. Buildings in the park are next on the list. And even though the pool is not open to the public this season, they've been cycling it through to keep things fresh and to make sure that when we open next season, we're in a good place. Over the next few weeks, we'll be systematically pulling the cover back and brushing down the sides.
Great, thank you very much. And I do, just to let everybody know, it looks like there's not much going on with this report, but remember that extensive report last month? Well, a lot of that they were just completing, so it kind of carries over. Thank you, Councilman Frazier. Councilman Derlin, can you give us the building department report?
Sure can. The monthly code enforcement report from George A. Cole Jr. Complaints have been addressed by this office, but many others have come into the office this month and are being addressed as needed. The Bacher home destroyed last year is being demolished starting today. Discussions with the supervisor and town attorney for issues associated with expired permits, which we've been talking about. COVID-19 safety procedures with inspections are being followed with applicants and during site visits. Applications and permits are significantly up, as well as home sale municipal inspections. And then he's got a work outline here. This month he's done 83 inspections, 2 violation notices been issued, 39 building permits have been issued, 11 old permit COs have been issued. There have been 5 municipal searches, 5 complaints, 1 violation has been abated, 8 resident meetings, 18 certificate of occupancy certificates, 5 complaints acted on, 0 appearance ticket issues, 0 fire callouts, and 18 plan review hours. And then he attached some verification for income of building permit fees.
That's it.
But,
A busy month. A very busy month for him. Okay, at this point, we are going to go into old business. I wanted to start with the Univale Solar on Route 55. We have a ratified resolution, something we've already taken care of, just to add to the record so that we can list everybody what's going on. I like to keep track of what's going on with the solar project. They were commencing and finalizing financing this week, and they are planning on construction starting in August, so, which is outstanding. And the only thing I'd like to say to some of our resident business owners, if you haven't gotten in touch with the people that we sent out on a Univale mail a couple of months ago, because you want your name thrown into the hat to take care of some aspect of the business, either the maintenance ongoing or something, please do so, because all this, they're going to start making these decisions and moving forward. So I'd really like it. I'm going to check in with them and make sure that all the jobs that we can do from Unionvale we're on that list. So everybody should call in and make sure their name's in. So, because that's going to start in August. The next topic is reopening town government. I wanted to take care of a couple of things. First of all, the courthouse is going to open on August the 5th. We were going to open, I had mentioned to everybody last month that we would start becoming normal again in July, and we haven't gotten in some of our supplies yet, like the fumigation and all of that. So we were asked not to bring the public in until we have all the supplies, which I'm hoping we get in the next week or so. But between the town is open. We've got new signs up saying that we prefer people make appointments, but we don't have the same volume that other big towns have. So we don't force the appointment issue, and we might get 3 or 4 people a day. Everybody has got chains across their doors so that people aren't coming in within 6 feet when they have a question of somebody in that office. They're using the Dropbox. The town clerk is helping anybody that drives up needs a permit or something, she's working through the window right out to the parking lot. People seem to like that. They all come in masks. We haven't had one problem with anybody showing, as far as I know, not one problem with anybody. Thank you. Town clerk is concurring that everybody's wearing a mask and is trying to be very open and being straight about it, which is great because we don't want any of our employees that might get nervous. We don't want them to get nervous. Now, I also wanted to make sure it was clear to people because we got a couple of emails, and I want to make sure people understood that the executive order that was given by the governor told the towns and the town governments to have meetings live, have them on Zoom or something else. We could even do a telephone conference call. We didn't have to use Zoom, but we opted to pay for that because we knew we'd get a lot of use out of it. And not to have comments by by residents at these meetings, and not to go on and on and on. Just do the business, do your voting and go home. And we followed those instructions. We did not have town comments. We weren't having, the normal procedures. I did say last month that we would be able to open up again in July. And in July, we are back to our normal agenda, which offers town comments in both sections. And we're doing exactly the guidance we were given by the state. And we're also doing what our town board felt like we was the right thing to do. So anybody that thinks that we've changed our rules or anything like that is wrong. We've been through a kind of a very strange 3 or 4 months. And hence there were some changes made, and there are going to be some more. I don't think we can't fit. We've got 5 chairs here that have been measured 6 feet apart for 4. We've got 6, but one the lawyer's got to sit in.
Yeah.
So we actually have room for 5 people in attendance from the public, and that's it. So, and we're going to do that in August because I know we'll have our supplies by August for fumigation. So for those of you who seem to write a lot of emails and were upset that things you couldn't comment or whatever, I apologize, but that's the guidance we were given. And we've been following most of that guidance to the letter, unless we vehemently, disagreed with it, something that wasn't having to do with safety. So we're reopened, and we have been working the entire time. Call us if you need anything, and we're really looking forward to servicing the public again. I want to make sure the workers' compensation insurance stays on our old business line until we get that cleared up. We've been sending letters back and forth. I'm not going to review all the details. There's no new news. But, that potentially is, that was a very poorly run program that the county inherited. Certainly Mark Molinaro inherited it. It was started in 1980. And I think Unionville joined it in 82 or something, some very, very long time ago. So as a result, they've inherited a bad problem, and they've continued to run it badly because that's the way it was set up. We got out so as not to have so much risk hanging over our head. We're trying to settle with them. We'll keep you posted. As far as Furnace Pond Dam, I want to mention, one of our missions of this board and the previous board and still continuing is our interest in solving and getting the dam at Furnace Pond set up so that it'll last another 100 years. And we don't want anything to happen to it. We want to, be responsible dam owners. So we hired Malone and McBroom, and they were waiting for these summer months to do things. And I've got a report from our engineer, which was, this is a quick summary, and they visited yesterday, which was great. They called, and Jake took some pictures, sent them to them. The water was perfect. They came over. The first visit this week, the engineers will take measurements at the dam, measure the amount of seepage through the dam, and document where the seepage is occurring. Visit 2 later this month, the survey crew will collect measurements and elevations on the dam, spillway, various gates and structures, etc. Visit 3 later this summer. After the town has drawn down the level of the pond, our engineers will inspect the dam, including the outlet valves that are normally submerged when the pond is full. So after all these visits, the engineers are going to conduct a stability analysis, a hydraulic analysis, and summarize the findings in an engineering assessment report, which is what we were paying them to do this year. And then from there, we will know what it will take. Ask some construction. They're going to get construction bids and what it'll take to fix it.
The town has got to draw down the pond.
Well, the town, in our meetings with them, Jake has agreed to a certain level of drawing down, depending on, sometimes in August when it goes way, way down. So on its own.
Yeah.
So Jake said, I can handle that. I will agree to draw it down on those months when it comes. Wait a minute.
All right,
And then they have some ideas of how we might want, they're trying to save us money.
yes.
Jake had a couple of other ideas as well, and we
Okay.
have a resident who works at IBM who had some suggestions for us. So if we don't want to do it and we want them, that's fine, but it'll increase our cost, and we're trying to
Sure.
adhere to the budgeted amount.
Sounds good.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're on our way. At least we'll know soon what our deal's going to be and what it'll take to fix it. Okay, as far as new business. On our new business, we discussed a couple of things in our work session. Some of these are holdovers, I know, but we never got to them, so it took a while for them. So two things. One, the employee insurance and benefit information, that's what this is titled, but really this section is health insurance, eligible retirees, vested employees, coverage of surviving spouse. This is all insurance related, disability insurance, and then it gets into workers' compensation. And some, we had deferred comp is in here as well, and then dispute resolution, which we didn't change. But the rest of this, we had to tweak a little bit to adhere to what some of the outside experts told us to put in here, which we did. I mentioned workers' comp. We want to make sure employees know that while they don't get to accrue their own benefits or take town benefits when they're also getting paid workers' comp. So, you know, you're not going to be able to say, I'm going to take a vacation day or something while you're on comp. So, and the other part was the insurance. This was voted on, and you guys had it's 2016, I think there was a handbook that was voted on. And there were some things in it that weren't entirely accurate. And one of the pieces was workers' comp is my best example. So we've gone through it. We tried to get rid of the things that didn't, there were things in there that didn't apply to our town, frankly, so we took them out.
Good.
But other than that, I think you guys have had a couple of weeks to look at it, and you get the definitions of what a vested employee is. The part that we tweaked was the part about like spousal insurance and things having to do with medical insurance that wouldn't have worked with the way our coverage works today.
Mhm.
Maybe 10 years ago it worked, but it doesn't work today. So we had to bring it all up to date to what we have. And if it's in this handbook, if that market changes again, it can be changed again. So there's, you know, eligible retirees are entitled to receive post-retirement benefits provided, and there's stipulations in here. But I think, you know, I think other than tidying up like we did, we adhered to what was voted on before. We just made it a little bit better.
It's a lot more clear now.
It's easier to read, I think. Yeah.
It's easier to understand,
And all the fluff that
especially
was,
for the employees.
yeah. Does anybody have any questions about it? I think we're ready to move forward with it. So I guess I'll make a motion that we vote on and pass, include the update, the employee handbook with the insurance and benefit information.
I will
6.1.
second that.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, okay. This passes. That's a good thing to get done. The next part of this is the paid time off. Now, this is a page that we did when we voted on paid time off before Councilman Derlin and Councilman McGivney joined us, but all it needed was a little tweaking and just clearing up. So for example, if you're here, I'm going to give you one example and then we can move on. I don't think you guys have any questions about it. But one of the questions that came up regularly is that if you were here, if you were hired in November and at your, well, let's say you were hired in July, that's a better example. If you were hired in July, what was happening is in the paycheck system, they would automatically credit you with 2 years, for example, in January. Everybody got credited in January, but it's supposed to be, our rule says, at the hire anniversary, the anniversary of your hire date. So basically people weren't clear. So we had to get the payroll provider clear, and we have to make sure that the employees understand that when you bump up from 2 to 4 years, which is what the board voted on last year, it's your anniversary date. It's not January of that year. Because if you, let's say you got started in November, you know, you need to wait till November of the second to hit your second year before you actually get credit for the 2 to 4 year, you know, extra week. Is that clear?
Mhm.
And the only other one we talked about Easter Sunday, and then sick time, how it accrues. 12 days per year, which accrue monthly. And then the fact that a town board member or a department head can ask for a medical note for an employee. You know, it's just got to be
Yeah.
that way when somebody may be sick. Any questions about paid time off? There are no questions. I'd like to make a motion that we vote for the clarification of the paid time off schedule as distributed. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor of the clarification for the paid time off schedule, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Both of those are taken care of. Thank you very much. Next up is change in building permit renewals requirements to be discussed. Everybody, the town board members would have gotten a handout that looks like this. So George Kolb and our attorney Jim Nelson and I had a meeting and then a subsequent phone call about this. And we talked about it before. Basically, it's not a big problem in our town, but it does come up for Mr. Kolb, and we'd like to support him in fine tuning things as he feels is necessary or our attorney suggests. So these are the suggestions that we came up with that George Kolb felt very comfortable with, and so did our attorney. One is to take, similar to the procurement policy a couple of years ago that we removed from the town code. Since we have to go to the town code to do the number 2, which we'll read in a second, it made complete sense to George and to Jim Nelson, and I completely agreed with them after the procurement policy, that we take the fee schedule. We take the fee schedule out of the town code so that the town board can vote on it. We vote on it every year in the master fee schedule. We vote, but we've never changed anything in the building department because it was all in the code. We just copied it. But this year, George and I in the fall, we're going to sit down and review some of his. He has some suggestions to adjust some fees, and it would be better if it weren't in that. So the idea here is to make 3 changes under the building permit section. And one is to remove the fee schedule and write in there that the town board must approve the fees annually, which we do in our master fee schedule annually anyway. 2 is to cap the annual permit renewals at 1. Right now it's open-ended and they go on forever. George has an example of that one that's been going on for 12 years. If we cap it at 1, after that, the process will start over again. So 2 years to get your permit and get everything done. It's probably
That's
okay.
reasonable.
And then the third request that George submitted was, if there are any requests for relief from fees or the time schedules due to some sort of hardship, he feels it should be, the board needs, that those should go to the board instead of George being put in, in a position where he's got to make a judgment because he doesn't, it shouldn't be. So those are, and that's not in the code now. So those 3 things, Jim Nelson feels if we're going to make these changes, it must be done in the code.
Yeah.
And if we all if we're all in agreement with this, we're not voting on it tonight, but
We'll have public hearing.
well, we're going to write the resolution of introduction for August,
Yes.
and then we would have the public hearing in September.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And then in the third, it takes 3 months, and then
Yeah.
the third month we'll do the final. But in other words, we're not voting
All right,
tonight.
introduce it tonight.
No, resolution of introduction is August.
Oh,
Tonight is, here's what we're thinking is if you have any comments or want any changes, you got time between now and August.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll write the resolution of introduction, vote on that, have the public hearing, and then the third month we close.
Yeah.
Okay? All right.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
We
and I
were
think-
going to look at what some of the neighboring towns were doing. Did we look at that?
Yeah, we did. I had it, and George had some, I had some, and we shared that on our conference call. And some of them give a 2-year renewal. Some charge 0 for renewals. Some, those were some are just like this. This is the one that George preferred because some of the others were the 1-year building permit and 1-year renewal. He also said that in our town, that works really well. He said, that he hasn't had, other than these, there's a few cases that he'd like to be able to fix, which is why we're doing this. But he said, all in all, that 1 year and then the 1-year renewal, it would be perfect. And we looked at, I think, 6 towns.
I think number 3 gives you the option to get out of it too. You have the option in the third.
Yeah.
In the third.
You mean the hardship?
Yeah, so there's a hardship that you get from the court. I think that number 2 is more than reasonable.
Great.
Addressing the same problem that we were talking about.
The planning board and the zoning board.
And this is a similar type of idea that we have we're discussing.
Good. Well, if it works for the building, he said that this would normally work really well for him. But that hardship, if the board decides that, and if somebody has a heart attack and can't work, and I mean, there are medical or issues, then the board will, the board will work with people, and then George doesn't have to worry. we look forward to hearing what the planning board and zoning board are interested in. That might not be a code change though, right? That could be, yeah, perfect. Okay, so between now and August, again, you want to call George or ask, if you email me and ask for more information, we'll get it for you, okay? What's up next? Oh.
Town boundaries.
Yeah, okay, so this is important, and I'm gonna give a little background on this for those people at home who might watch this or listen to this meeting after the fact. And then the town board is gonna have a discussion, and we're gonna invite residents to jump in on this discussion, send us emails, call us on the phone, come to the next meeting, but we'd like to hear your thoughts. Now, this new business number, item number, is altering town boundary lines to annex parcels in the town of Beekman. And I will say there is a municipal annexation law, and it's 19 sections. And I went through the 19 sections. It hasn't been done in the New York State since 2013. So there are very few people that are experts. I wanted to get an expert come on with us, but very few people that are experts, but the law is written and the law is the law. Now, we first considered doing this a year ago when we, on our property, Time War Park property, one of the parcels that resides in the town of Beekman, we wanted to put the cell tower up. Everybody in the town of Unionville approved it and thought it was a good idea because they understood that the board committed 100% of the revenues to go to Time War Park and the fixing up of our park, which is an old dairy barn, has a lot of buildings. So the town of Beekman blocked that effort when we went to get Parkland alienation up in Albany, which is required if you want to give up, even if it's 5,000 square feet, you have to get permission from Albany if it's in a municipal park. I'm saying some of this because there's some new people. But so the town of Beekman, now we're a municipality, we own that land, and the town of Beekman blocked our efforts to get the park. Then we asked to meet with them 4 times. Our town board gave the supervisor 4 different dates in last summer to meet with them because they said that they voiced some opposition. They were upset about something, what was it? Zoning or something. So because they said that, we offered to meet with them, gave them 4 dates. They refused to meet with us and they kept saying, oh, people are on vacation, and they wouldn't do it. They said, don't worry, we'll work it out with the lawyers later. Mark Molinaro and asked Dana Smith, the Commissioner of Emergency Management, to please set up a meeting because when Beekman mentioned lawyers, he said, I don't want to see any taxpayer money wasted on something that we could sit around a table and figure out.
Especially when it's benefiting both towns.
It's benefiting both towns because the zone on 55 is pretty long and everybody gets, it's a dead zone. And everybody, the emergency management people will want it all over town. We know that.
Sure.
But also the kids now, we know looking back that it would have been a good thing for everybody to have Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah.
So the supervisor in Beekman, for some reason, maybe because her board opted not to, did not want to come to the meeting with Commissioner Smith and discuss the problem. We were served with an Article 78. They had to pay an enormous sum to have their lawyer prepare that and send it to us. We had to pay, it was just under $30,000 to defend ourselves with that Article 78. It was unbudgeted expense, and it was annoying and very disturbing to us because it's our land. We submitted our response. We waited 9 months. The judgment came back from the Supreme Court in Poughkeepsie that Unionville had done everything correctly. They dismissed the case on every aspect. So Beekman lost that case, even though we lost $30,000. So we went back to Albany and said, okay, Parkland alienation, your legislators are in. We need you to vote for this Parkland alienation bill so we can move on. Our vendor is still waiting for us. That's Verizon, and wants our spot. And they said, fine, they were almost all there. And then all of a sudden they wrote me an email and said, Beekman has just notified us that they're going to appeal the case. This happened in June after all the COVID. So they have notified, their attorney has notified that they're going to appeal, which means that they put a piece of paper in that doesn't cost anything, but it does hold their spot for 6 months. So either they're either delaying, hoping that the vendor walks away, or they're gearing up to appeal the case, in which case we will be forced to spend more money to defend ourselves for municipal owned property. So that's when all these conversations started happening. Why should the town of Beekman be telling the town of Unionville what to do with this land, considering everybody in Unionville was very happy about this? All right, so that's the background. There is a law, a municipal annexation law. It works really well when two towns agree. And basically there's petitions, you get petitions signed. The people that live on the land that you're trying to annex would have to sign them, but there's nobody living there. So we have to get petitions signed. If the petitions are filled out and we show people, here's the previous map, here's the new map, this is what we want to do. It would go to the county legislature. And if all the petitions are in good order, then my guess is they vote for it because the town wants it, and the Beekman people would probably vote for it too. And then it goes on from there, and ultimately it goes on a proposition on a ballot. But in the middle of this process, if one town doesn't agree, and Beekman doesn't seem to agree with us on a lot of things for some reason, then it gets adjudicated by a Supreme Court judge in Poughkeepsie again. So in the middle of this process, we have petitions, we show maps, we have petitions, we have a hearing. If that town refuses to come, then it goes to a Supreme Court judge to adjudicate, and whatever that decision is, you take to the proposition to a ballot and it gets voted on.
Yeah,
So
I
how do you feel?
understand.
That's the
Get
background.
voted on in the hometown, or does it also get voted on?
Well, I haven't gotten clarification on that. It definitely is on in a proposition on our ballot. I'm not sure about their town yet. We're still looking. I found the name of an expert, but we've been exchanging phone. I haven't talked to him. At one point of the law, when I read it, it looked like the electors that lived in the area that was being annexed and get to vote. But there's nobody
But there's
living
no
there.
residents,
Yeah.
it's
And
just Parkland.
it's Parkland, and it also, there's no municipal tax being paid, so Beekman's not losing anything. So
For
they
sure.
may not care. I mean, we don't know, but I think it's important to hear what we all think.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. This should have been done probably 49 years ago when the Parkland was acquired by the town.
Yeah,
But since it wasn't done, and over the years, there's been a lot of taxes paid on that property, even though that shouldn't have happened. But we were often assessed money, and we had a fight. 2 times we've had the tax removed, as it currently is now. But in the past, there have been years where we paid tax on that property because of
terrible.
someone in Beacon just putting it on the tax rolls. So I think it's important for the residents of Unionville to have all of their own property owned by the town within the town borders, so we can properly govern it and manage it. And there's no need for another town to have their hand in it.
right. And it's arbitrary.
It just runs up expenses that go nowhere. It gained no one anything.
Yeah, their decision last
This
year was
legal
so
stuff
arbitrary.
is expensive.
Yeah. No, we should take care of our own. Councilman Durland, any comments or,
I completely agree.
yeah?
Yeah, I don't.
Unmute. Everybody unmute.
Yeah, I think we have to do that.
Take care of ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's time for us to take care of ourselves. I think that the cell tower is a good idea. That's one of those things that's in the public's interest. It's not just in the town's interest, it's in everybody's
Right.
interest.
Yeah.
That dead zone on 55 is enough.
And what's interesting, if you read the Beekman master plan, it very clearly states that they want to increase cell type service, and it should be with facilities located in rural, undensely populated parts of the town, which is exactly where we were trying to promote it.
Right.
Yeah.
But why they were objecting is beyond me.
Councilman McGivney, any thoughts?
I'm in agreement. I think we should try to take ownership of the land back for tax purposes and just, like I said, to be able to control our own interests.
Yeah.
So I'm in agreement.
All right. Councilman Frazier?
Yeah, I agree as well. We should have all property owned by the town should be within the town borders. And I just hope and fingers crossed that it goes smoothly.
Right, same here. Aye. Okay. Well, I would like to then encourage anybody out there to call, write, talk to your councilman, anybody that you know, all of us,
And you county legislature.
and your county legislator. You can tell them, that this is something that's important to our town, and we'd like to hear from you. And then when we get the rest of the facts laid out and the step-by-step, we will bring it to the town, and then we'll either kill the idea because nobody likes it, or we will prepare a lot of petitions. Okay?
Good.
All right. Thank you all residents for getting in touch with us on this one. Emergency plan. Now, Councilman Frazier, I gave you a copy.
Right.
I wanted to let you know. Bill Beal has a template that he says that he will send us. And I was thinking that you might see him before I see him.
I'm actually meeting with him on Saturday.
Oh, excellent. And he'll email you that. Would you, remind him to do that, and then we'll get started, and that'd be great. Thank you for spearheading that. And everybody will help you, but we appreciate you taking charge of the emergency plan. Shared services agreement with LaGrange. I mentioned this to the board members. We have finally, and we've used this planner already, who's given us some excellent feedback on some aspects of our code and a couple of applications that we have in front of boards or people that want to be. But we need to sign this agreement for them so that they know that we're going to be paying them when this woman charges us. It's a billable. You guys got it. I sent it to you. It's not a share. I'm calling it shared services because we both think that's a good thing to say that, within the state of New York, we shared services, but we're paying billable hours and she's their employee. And I sent you an email giving you the details. It's a terrific thing for
It's really
them.
like a modified version of shared service.
Yeah, I don't know why anybody would object to it just because we're paying slightly different. We're not just sharing the employee. They're still getting reimbursed. So it's a win-win for them. So I think that it'll still be considered shared service. And that was Supervisor Bell and I was hoping for that. So if everybody got a chance to read that, if you didn't, tell me in the comments. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve and give the supervisor permission to sign the intermunicipal agreement for shared services of a town planner, so we can get back to work with this woman and get going. Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it. Are
Okay,
you allowed to make that motion?
I can make, the supervisor can make any motion.
All right.
So there's a first and a second. All in favor, or would anybody like to discuss it? No discussion. All in favor of? Any opposed? You're quick. They're eyeing before I'm finishing my sentence. All right, sounds like that's unanimous and that motion carries. Thank you very much. At this point, we have resolutions and motions. We have
Yeah. we
taken
did the
care of.
2027.
Thank you, Councilman Welsh. Very nice. Councilman Derland, you were going to take resolution 2028.
Sure. Resolution 2028, resolution report standard workday hours for highway superintendent to NYS LRS. Whereas the town of Unionville is required to report standard workdays for hourly, salary, elected and appointed officials to the New York State and local retirement system, based on the record of activities maintained and submitted by these officials to the clerk of this body. And whereas the town of Unionville has received the hours for standard workday for the highway superintendent and elected official in the town of Unionville. And whereas the following specifies the standard workdays for title highway superintendent named Edward Kading. Standard workday is 8 hours. The term is 1/1/20 to 12/31/21. Yeah.
Unmute.
Sorry. You want to start again?
Do you mind?
I'll start again. The good practice. All right. All right. Resolution 2028. Thank you, Steve. Yeah, right. Resolution to report standard workday hours for highway superintendent to NYS LRS. Whereas the town of Unionville is required to report standard workdays for hourly, salaried, elected, and appointed officials to the New York State and local retirement system, based on the record of activities maintained and submitted by these officials to the clerk of this body. And whereas the town of Unionville has received the hours for the standard workday for the highway superintendent, an elected official in the town of Unionville. And whereas the following specifies the standard workdays for: title, highway superintendent, name is Edward Kading. Standard workday is 8 hours. The term is 1/1/20 to 12/31/21. Reportable days was 20. And then I guess participates in the timekeeping is no. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Unionville hereby adopts and approves the standard workday for its elected official, Edward Kading, Highway Superintendent, as included and made part hereof, and be it further resolved that a copy of the standard workday hours shall be kept on file in the office of the town clerk.
Excellent introduction. Thank you, Councilman Derlin. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Has the highway superintendent agreed to this?
Has he agreed to it? He submitted yes, he submitted it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I gave you this, but this is the form he submitted.
Okay.
So no discussion? You have a roll call vote,
Councilman
please?
Derlin,
Aye.
Councilman Frazier,
Aye.
Councilman McGivney,
Aye.
Councilman Welsh,
Aye.
Supervisor Mott.
Aye. That motion 2028, resolution 2028 carries. And then we have one resolution. This has to do with the solar development, and their project financing. And the formal reading of the resolution is waived, although we can read it if somebody would like to do that.
It's up to you. I'll read it if you want.
I think the interesting thing about the reason I even wanted a resolution was so that residents could keep track of what we're doing with the solar development. So I actually feel free to read it. Councilman Welsh will introduce it, and then somebody will second it. We'll
All
go
right.
from there. Thank you.
Resolution 20-29, resolution ratifying execution of documents related to solar project financing. Whereas the town of Unionville Town Board executed a land lease agreement, herein the agreement, and a memorandum of lease agreement, herein memo, dated February 21st, 2019, with ELP Unionville Solar LLC for the lease of portions of real estate property identified as tax map parcels 135-400-6660-00-544087-0000, and so forth, known generally as the 2006 Route 55, herein the property, for purposes of installation and maintenance of 2 megawatt solar energy system here in the facility, subject to ELP Unionville Solar LLC obtaining all necessary approvals and permits. And whereas the agreement and the memo provided that each document would be amended to add meets and bounds descriptions where such descriptions were ready, and such descriptions have now been provided by ELP Unionville Solar LLC. And whereas ELP Unionville Solar LLC is seeking financing from VTOL Solar One LLC, which is required an estoppel certificate from the town of Unionville as a condition to making such financing. And whereas the following documents have been negotiated between these parties as to form and content, and copies of the documents are on file with the town clerk. First amendment to land use. 2, amended and restated memorandum of land lease. And 3, estoppel certificate. And whereas the town board issued a negative declaration when approving the application for this facility, and no further environmental review was needed for the execution of the above referenced documents. And whereas by resolution 19-36, dated December 5th, 2019, the town board approved the application for the facility and authorized the supervisor to execute any and all documents reasonably necessary to give effect to that approved resolution. And whereas pursuant to said approved resolution, the supervisor executed the first amendment to land lease, amended and restated memorandum of land lease, and the estoppel certificate above referenced on July 6, 2020. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the town of Unionville Town Board hereby ratifies the execution of the First Amendment to land lease, amended and restated memorandum of land lease, and the estoppel certificate by the supervisor, which occurred on July 6, 2020, and further authorizes the supervisor to execute any and all other documents reasonably necessary to give the effect of this resolution.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. Any discussion? All right, I'd like to call for a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Derlin,
Aye.
Councilman Frazier,
Aye.
Councilman McGivney, Councilman Welsh,
Aye.
Supervisor Moss.
Aye. Okay. We have formally ratified Resolution 2029 and our
Bring on the sun.
bring on the city. Exactly. They're on the way, which is great. Okay. At this point, we need to pay the bills. May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to pay any transfers or warrants, pay bills.
Any second?
Second.
All right. Thank you very much. All in favor of paying the bills, transfers?
Aye.
All of the above, thank you. Aye, all unanimously voted on. We'll take care of that. I will say that we have finished auditing after the annual update document that you guys know we submitted a couple of months ago.
Mhm.
We have finished auditing and going through the fund level transfers, the minute things that have to happen, like between the health retirement account to the payroll account, that kind of thing. And I have a list of them. I'm going to bring them to the next meeting. I'll give them to you at the work session. Bring them in. We're going to get them all voted on at one time because Danielle's been excruciatingly, tracking the due tos and due froms. And so we have a nice list and we'll all be clean, and did a lot of cleanup from, 3-4 years ago of things that the accountant did as a lump sum. Then she broke it all. The town was always in good shape. Then she broke it down into the fund level. So there's a list. So I'll bring it to you next month and we'll go through it then. Okay. So that's all about the adjustments, transfers, warrants, and paying bills. Now we are at public comments on town issues. Glenn Morrison, you still on, and do you want to speak?
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, good. Thanks for the time. And I'm not sure if Mrs. Skorlik is still on the call or not. And clearly I don't know all the things that she does. But if she is there, it sounds very, very impressive. So thank you for the work that she does. I'm here today with really one simple request. And much of what I'm going to talk about is not new news because I've been in touch with the board on this before. I really need the board to kind of reconsider how things have been run over the past 2.5 years. I find that the board is not interactively engaging with residents in any sort of a meaningful way and doing things based upon resident input. And I mean, I look at the board as being an extension of residents, and I just hope the board can think more about how you're engaging with residents. Clearly not a member of the board, and I'm not sure if Katie is still there or not, but on a positive note, my limited experience with Ed is he listens and he acts. And I really think that's kind of the message I'd like to leave with the board. And it's not just me saying this. I've talked to enough others to realize that others have the same concern. Over the past 2.5 years, it's not hard to recognize actions that have kind of kept residents in the dark and brushed aside suggestions and questions where they're not consistent with thinking. I don't want to talk about that in the abstract, so I'll mention a couple examples. One, this board meeting. We've gone from two meetings a month to 1 meeting a month, therefore effectively limiting resident input by 50%. We've gone to a 3-minute limit on comments, of which I'm probably a minute and a half into. Resident comments are not responded to during the meeting, not responded to after the meeting. Be perfectly blunt, it's like talking to a brick wall at times. So, I mean, please realize that residents are here. We want to make this community as good as you do, and we can participate. We can add to the system. And lastly, with the exception of this meeting, I can't remember the last time I saw a meeting agenda published prior to the meeting. And why that is, I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of things going on, but how can you expect residents to participate if they don't know what the topics are? So I thank you for getting the agenda out for this meeting, but quite honestly, I can't remember the last time I saw an agenda. So again, my request is simple. Reconsider how business is being done. Focus on engaging with residents. I've got some ideas, by the way. I'd be glad to share the ideas with how to do that and reacting to resident input. I want to, before I go any further, I actually want to read something here before my 3 minutes are up. And I got it from the from the New York State Local Government Handbook. So this, I understand, is a handbook that's used by local governments to how to kind of run things. So it's an extract from Chapter 10, the preamble. So I'm going to read this and then I'm going to conclude. If the American system of government is to function properly, citizens must actively participate in its operations at all levels, but especially at the local level. Local officials have both a responsibility and a stake in keeping residents fully informed about local programs and activities and giving them clear opportunities to play meaningful roles in determining local public policy and in carrying it out. That's excerpt number 1. Excerpt number 2 is all local officials have a basic duty to assure that residents can participate actively and meaningfully in local government affairs. And I have a hard time seeing that sometimes. So my 3 minutes are getting close to being up. I just urge this board, each member of the board, to think about that. Anybody who's listening now or watching this recorded, please speak up. If you've got questions, please speak up however you think you want to. So thank you for your time.
Well, if we want to comment, I will say, I don't know when Mr. Morrison started watching these town board meetings, but I've lived here fewer years than he has, and I've watched many of them, and I remember how they used to be, and I remember they were always 3-minute commentary times. That was only you used to have to sign up at the door.
Right.
I remember that from years past. So the 3 minutes hasn't changed. I used to send the agendas out on the Unionville mail all the time, and then stopped during the COVID period sending them out because I felt like there was so much over communicating. But the town clerk will post them on the website when they're finished. I feel that if you've been watching these town board meetings for a long time, Glenn, and I get your emails, I got all of them, and I think that this town board, last year's and this year's, we have a lot of initiatives and a lot of things that we want to do. I don't know of one, I can't think of an example of where people were shut out of anything because we talk to people a lot. They're allowed to speak at the town board meetings. They're also allowed to call us on the phone and come by and visit us. If you see Ed Kading on the street, it's the instructions on the street are a little bit easier how to interact than in a town board meeting. Typically, if you keep reading that book cover to cover, they'll tell you at a town board meeting, the town board meeting members aren't supposed to say anything. You're not supposed to engage, and you're not supposed to let people take over the meeting, and you're not supposed to let a fight break out, that sort of, no arguing. It's supposed to be a legislative session. There's supposed to be a level of decorum. And when people speak, we want to hear what they have to say, but we're not going to disagree or argue with them in public. But we do listen. And we do walk out of the room and comment to each other and say, oh, that was a really good point. Or I think maybe that gentleman might be angry about something that we disagree with him on, not that we're doing. So I think we've gotten a lot done, and I think we have a lot more to do, and we're always looking for input, but unfortunately people don't always agree. And I find that when they don't always agree is when they, tend to send emails and want to know, a lot more about things. Maybe they have more time on their hands than other people do. I don't know, but we're happy to engage in any way. We did start having quarterly. Remember, we were having we were going to have coffee and donuts in town hall, and nobody would come.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we tried different things at different times, and people don't always come. But when they want to talk to us, they seem to pick up the phone. And believe me, all of us are here. Speaking for myself, and I know everybody else would say the same thing. They're here because they want to do something good for the town. I think if Glenn goes back and watches movies from the past town board meetings of Unionville, he will find that they are different now. There is no yelling and screaming. There is no picking on individual employees. We don't do that here anymore. And we feel like I feel like the meetings have gotten better. We don't always agree with each other, but that's okay. That's why we're here. So thank you for that comment. I want to check in with Elfrida because she was having trouble. Elfrida, can you unmute? I'm asking her to unmute. Can you hear her? Oh, there she is. You've been unmuted, Mrs. Tillman. Would you like to say something? No? Did she happen to call you? All right, well, I'm sorry, we're not gonna be able to hear what you have to say. All right, well, I think that's about it, unless any board member has anything else they'd like to say. Everybody good? Anything else? All right, can I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for joining us.